Welcome to the festival Virgin Startup stage.
Hello.
Sorry, we're not in the sunshine.
Thanks for having us.
Dominique. Hi, Fabian. Hi, Andy. Thank you for being here. And you just heard from Andy about the love and the excitement that we feel around the Virgin Startup community for food and drink. So now we're going to cross over to the reality of what it's like to do it and take on the questions from our audience as well. So just to start, for our starters, for our appetizer, I wanted to ask you all to, like Andy just said, give us a shout out for a food and drink startup brand that you are into at the moment. Dominique.
Money Life have been a really great supporter of me and my business and the book. So I mean, you've got Pip and Nut up there. Money Life are a great example. And actually, I've learned so much from Dan's podcasts on being a food founder, actually. So I found that just, really informative, a fun brand, and I love the product. So
Money Life, for those that don't know it, is what? What kind of product is it?
It is peanut butter. And they've got several different, like you, I buy it in kilo tubs. So I have it for my... Cool. Yeah, I mean, I love that stuff. I cook with it, I eat it, and they've got a chocolate one, which is ridiculous. I mean, so that's my snack in the afternoon, the morning ones for my breakfast. I mean, I could live off the stuff, so absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah, and the dark roasted is really
incredible.
Really good. Thank you for that, Dominique. Fabian, what about you?
So I think Andy's already stolen a couple of my ideas because I'm good friends with the guys from Dash and Nice and drink them myself a lot. However, although I love spirits, clearly, because I started quarter, I'm a big fan of beer. And I would say my favorite at the moment is Deya Brewing. So it's DEYA Brewery based in Cheltenham. They started 2015, 2016. It just seems like they've just, even though they came late to the whole craft beer movement, they've created incredible beers, which everyone's shouting about, and all the breweries are desperate to get hold of them. So, all the pubs are desperate to get hold of them.
Why is it such a hit beer?
I don't know. I think everything they create, it just tastes incredible. That's pretty much how. Although it's definitely, I hope they don't mind me saying this bit. Although I mean, I live in London, so everything's expensive, but it is definitely more expensive than most beers. But it's definitely worth the extra £1.
I made a mistake of ordering a pint of Beavertown at Paddington Station the other day.
Right.
£8.20, sir.
Oh wow!
Oh, wow.
I'm like, wow.
I've never seen that before.
No wonder direct to consumers doing so well. I'll stay at home, thanks. I'll get eight cans for that. Andy, what about you?
Okay, for me, one of the interesting ones with a business model that's quite close to ours is Pasta Evangelists. In 7 years, they went from nothing to an exit to a pasta company for £40 million. So they had a very clear model that they wanted to follow and to exit quickly. And then they grew their brand online with their website through subscription, but they also had physical places in Harrods. So they had that front of mind presence on the high street in the most amazing place possible. But then they also had the online subscriptions to back it up. So they had multiple revenue streams done perfectly, great brand, great product. And they just did what they wanted to do in 7 years, and he's sort of retired onto something else now.
So you're trying to follow in their footsteps in terms of their business?
Not necessarily exit, but the revenue streams. So like I say, having the front of mind high street places that, I mean, he explained that they don't even need to make profit. They just need to have eyeballs on them in really high footfall areas. And that's far cheaper than having like ads nowadays. Everyone knows how bad Facebook's gone. So to have stuff on the high street, it's really interesting. It's something we want to continue to do. We see online as a channel, but not the means to an end.
There we go.
Everything's getting more expensive. So
there we go. Fighting the high street is dead mantra already, Andy. I love it. Let's go around to what matters to you. Like what drives you to get out of bed and really focus on what you're doing, Dominique?
For me, it's that sort of desire to keep that business at the forefront. So it's keeping that momentum up. I think it's just, I'm sort of a bit tunnel visioned. So it's just, I'm so focused on getting to the next stage and building it. It's only me in the business. So if I sort of take my foot off the ball for a minute, which I have done occasionally, it goes to pot. So for me, it's keeping that momentum up, keeping that enthusiasm. And for me, it's it's that excitement, I want to still love what I'm doing and that passion for it, which can be hard in the food business because it's not all about, for me, my favorite part, creating that recipe. So it's how can I keep it exciting for me as a founder.
Yeah, the day it's not exciting is a hard one as a founder, isn't it? Because then you're like, oh no, I've got to motivate everyone else as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Fabian, what about you? What drives you?
I think fundamentally what drives me is doing something completely different. I mean, we are essentially starting like a whole new category in the spirits market, which is daunting. And don't get me wrong, it has its challenges and hurdles, but find it really exciting. And I think fundamentally, and sound a bit grandiose, but thinking bigger picture and fundamentally like changing how people potentially drink and how interact with spirits, for me, is what gets me really excited. And if we can ever achieve even a portion of that, would I'd feel like I've done something.
Yeah, so you feel like you're part of a bigger movement and mission, which is true for all your businesses. Andy, what's the driver?
I love building things, and I love the challenge behind building something, building a cafe from hand, moving to a bigger cafe, building that, building the e-commerce side to the business. Black Milk was consciously chosen as a brand name where we can do anything with it. Obviously, Virgin's another great example of that. So we understand as we evolve as individuals and our consumers also change, we can slowly, gradually change to provide needs in different sectors, different things, and just keep it interesting for ourselves as entrepreneurs.
That's brilliant to hear. And as we are sharing these appetizers, we're getting lots of people joining us. So Najila, head of product at Cerebrium Studio. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Kishan, founder of Beans Around the World, a small coffee brand that's just getting going. Mohit's joining us from India, building a vegan food and drink business. Knack Snacks, Brittany. Pre-launch high protein, low sugar version of a Malteser. So there we go. We got a full house of meals here. So let's share our stories now of how it began. And for all of us, at some point this was just an idea. So take us back to that moment. And Andy, maybe if we can start with you. What was the moment where Black Milk sort of came to life in your mind, and how did you turn it into the first version?
So the first version was back in 2015. We'd wanted to do a food and drink brand for a while. Me and my business partner started out as nightclub promoters, so we've always been involved with the events and experience sort of industry. So we took that experience from the nightclub, from a dance floor to a plate. We just decided to create something special there. We used the same techniques, the same people, and we just really knew we had to focus on that unique blue ocean sort of strategy of having something so interesting that you've got no competitors. And through doing that, you can really stand out and grow and grow. And with the help of Virgin StartUp, we opened a new, larger premise. And
so, Andy, just sorry to jump in, but there's so much you just said already. I'd love to tease out a couple of the things. So when you say you wanted to take what you were doing on the dance floor or witnessing,
and put
personally. It into it, well, no judgment here.
Yeah.
And put it into a food experience. Can you just explain that, break that down for us?
So as a brand, experience is everything. It's the service you have, it's the food you eat, it's your senses, your smell, your vision, what you hear. There's everything going on there. We just want to be in a good way, a sensory overload of everything that you do. So you're just left with a wow, ecstatic sort of joy feeling about the brand and the product. So yeah, like me and my business partner have got slightly different backgrounds. Like so, as event management, he's got a food and drink family that have been entrepreneurs of different brands. So we took that and combined it together, and we've been a great partnership for 12, 13 years now. And we've just done multiple businesses with it, and it's always worked well. And it's been a great journey. It starts small, and we started with just cash flow. We started with a minimal viable product, I guess you'd call it. Started something really basic, and then grew and grew through sales and cash flow.
And what was that MVP? Can you describe it to us, and also what you were testing, what you learned from it, how you resourced it?
Yeah, so we started in a place called Affleck. So it's a little sort of it's kind of like Camden, I guess, where you've got loads of different independent retailers and makers. So we opened up one unit there, and before we'd even announced that it was opening, BBC were on the phone to us, asking us about it. So we went from 1 unit to 2 units before we even opened. And then we started as a cereal cafe. So initially we were going to be takeaway only. And then it worked so well immediately that we decided to have a seating area. And then within a couple of months, we had 2 seating areas. And you just had that initial support of the community, basically. Everyone loves to snap you up, start doing something interesting. And we made sure that we shared our story online through social media. We spoke to the press. I've been on Israeli TV, I've been on British TV, I've done all sorts of interesting stuff. Our social media has been watched by millions and millions by now. So we're not a individual focused brand, but it's all about black milk for us. We're in the background. So everything is about the product, our staff providing the service, and then just making sure everything's perfect for everyone involved.
And you say that the first version was a cereal, or the first place that you opened was focused on cereals. To explain to people who might not understand why that was so exciting, or how you made that enticing for people.
So yeah, we started basically the idea was nostalgia of looking back to your childhood, and obviously your parents would say, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Have your cornflakes with just milk." And we found that boring, but we also saw an opportunity to really do something nostalgic for something we both loved, from like Lucky Charms to everything else that's interesting. I actually grew up in America for a few years as well, so I had a lot of influence of American dessert, brunch, all this sort of stuff. So in terms of operations, if you try and do everything at once, you don't fail, unless you've been in the industry for years and years and years. Like I said, I was a nightclub promoter. It's quite different from being a cafe manager. So we started with cereal, and then we introduced milkshakes, and then we introduced waffles, and then we've introduced baking quite recently, and we keep on adding these processes. So we're going to analyze businesses. It's just the sum of your processes. It'll be serving people, making the food, cleaning up after them, marketing. So you just want to, as a startup, nail 1 or 2 to start with, and just the products, the delivery, how you serve it, and then just something food safety is critical. You can kill people. It's that simple. We have nut spreads, so nut allergies are big ones. We're very careful there.
There you go. You just put off half the crowd. You can kill people, he said. Can't do that when you're making a web app, but no, it's a crucial part of the journey. Andy, thanks for that introduction to Black Milk. I want to come back to the financials and other aspects of businesses, but Dominique, very different journey, but still in the same industry. So tell us about where it began for you.
So I guess it was 2019. I had this idea. I'd had 3 kids in quick succession. So, I mean, they're currently, I think at the time they were like 1, 2, and 3 or something ridiculous, you know. And I knew I needed a new career. I didn't have one to fall back on. And after a lot of soul searching, I realized, you know, it was food. I always was obsessed by food. I was most happy in the kitchen, just creating and concocting. My Thai auntie, I'm half Thai, my Thai auntie had made these wonderful sauces, and it was a tamarind sauce, which I remember first trying a few years ago, and that had sparked this sort of excitement. Never had anything like it. It blew me away. So when I was soul searching in 2019, I was like, hang on, there's this amazing sauce. I need to bring it to market. I've never tried anything like it. So I knew I was going to do that. Instead of going straight into it, I kind of procrastinated a bit. I decided to go to Leeds Cookery School. I wanted to immerse myself, because actually at that point I knew I also wanted to be a food writer. I didn't know how it was going to transpire in the end, but my plan was to kind of do the food writing, develop that whilst developing a product, and somehow the two would kind of merge and make something greater than each individual part. Which I'm still working on, but I think we're going in the right direction. So I did Leeds Cookery School. I started writing a regular food column just to hone my writing skills, which thank God I did that. And then in the September 2019, I said to myself, I'm going to give myself a deadline, because I actually work best with deadlines. I'm a bit disorganized a lot of the time, so I need a bit of a focus. So I said, right, by December I'm going to have 3 products. I'm going to take them to my local farmers market and test the concept. Over the previous years, and even before I had this thing, the light bulb moment, I'd been to quite a few food events. So it was things like Bread and Jam, Virgin StartUp Meetups. I'd been to Enterprise Nation. So I'd been to a lot of these events, and I understood that you had to ideally go and test it. So my goal was December. I worked on these resources, and miraculously found a small manufacturer immediately. I was really lucky. I'd done a bit of digging and found one. And so I actually had these 3 products with Canva. I did a label in Canva. They printed it up for me. And went to the farmers market.
Imagine if you had to build this business without Canva.
No, I mean, I didn't even know what it was until, recently. But and I went to Ali Pali Farmers Market, did 2 dates and sold 250 bottles of sauce, which is a decent amount of sauce to ship at a farmers market. So that was the testing the concept bit. Right, someone other than my mum says they like it, so we're onto something. And I was always, again, I'd been to a talk, and I think it was it was another food founder who'd said route of minimal investment. I'd never heard this before. Andy mentioned it kind of, and so for me it was like, well, I'm not going to invest a lot in it. Manufacturing doesn't have to be scary. I thought you'd have to do 50,000 bottles to do manufacturing. It was a run of 500 or something, and you can even do smaller. So it was totally possible. I wasn't going to outlay so much initially, and I just literally did it in those increments. I was due to launch in April, but lockdown happened. It gave me a couple of months grace, and actually, I think like the rest of the world, I had a bit of a brain fog. I didn't know if I wanted to do the business, but I had 1,000 bottles of sauce in a warehouse. The branding I had done at that point, we'd rushed it through, because I'm one of these people, jump before you're ready. And I heard that somewhere, and I'm just one of those people. If I don't do it, if I wait for that right moment, it's never going to happen. I could have waited for years to find the ideal disruptive product that didn't exist, blah blah blah, and I didn't. I knew I had a product I could be passionate about, I could be authentic about, and I thought, I'm just going to do this. But in that instance, I probably had rushed the branding, so it gave me 2 months extra to rework it and tweak it, and then I launched in the June, in lockdown still, in 2020.
Wow. Well, yeah, I'm just, so many questions, but I guess the first one is really around the children, and those are 3 startups on a whole nother level. So
I know. So
to make that decision to go, I'm going to jump in with 2 feet into building a business, and then when lockdown came, to then still go at it, what drove you through that?
Well, I just became, I'm one of these, again, I'm quite tunnel visioned when I want to be. I'm not like that with every aspect of my life. It would be impossible. But I just had it in my mind that it's my time. After 40, my kids were 3, 4, and 5. I knew I needed to find this sort of purpose, which was my business, which was something I could do for myself, that I could be successful in, and show the world I could do something exciting. I knew that food was just, I was so excited about the prospect of starting a brand. I'd been to workshops, and it was in fact a Virgin workshop I'd been on a few years ago about building a brand, and I just thought, this is so exciting. This is something I really, really want to do, and I'm not going to let lockdown get in my way. Of course, at that time, my kids were 3, 4, and 5 by this time. So it was obviously really hard. I just had to make it work. A bit more TV than usual. They'd come with me to deliveries. A bit of bribery to go to the post office again. I did deliveries myself for the first month, and then realised I've got the warehouse sorted. I'm not doing. It seems like you're spending money on it, but actually it takes me an hour to deliver something half a mile down the road. So no.
And that's the thing that people who've never done food and drink startups before perhaps don't appreciate. It's so physical. It's very hard to do this without being phically involved in a way that people who are sitting on machines all day don't realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just packaging samples, which actually I stopped doing now, and I hated it, because putting the boxes together, it would take me about half an hour to get the box configured, and then my living room would be taken over, and the sellotape everywhere. I never quite got the grasp of all of this. So there's definitely areas you need to outsource, and I've spoken to people that have been going for years and years and still have a garage, and they package it all up and send it themselves, and absolutely fair play if they found a way of doing it. And for me, I just knew that I had to focus where my strengths are, and that's definitely not one of my strengths.
Final question on the early days, Dominique, and I come to Fabian's story, but it sounds like a lot of this was just obviously passion and instinct, but did you look at all at the sort of marketplace in terms of competition? Because sauces especially seem to be so much competition, and yeah,
absolutely. So I did a competitor analysis. I'd gone in enough courses to know that you need to look at your 3 C's: your category, your competition, your consumers. I'd been to the British Library. Touch typed that you can only print off 1 sheet of the report. So I did what I could that proved that spicy food was on the up, condiments were were on the up. Thai food was, you know, well, it's not just Thai, but it's Asian inspired. But I kind of had enough to go, well, look, this is something. Admittedly, you know, as I've said, this wasn't a new product to market. It's not in a disruptive new category. So I knew that was always going to go a challenge, let's say. Yeah. But I also think I knew that my product was good and different, and I had a backstory. So I thought I have to go for it, because, you know, even if it means that 2 years down the line I pivot and do something else, I've now got 2 years of experience in the food industry at ground level that I would never have had I waited to find that ideal moment or product.
And Wolf's Kitchen, obviously, a name. But in terms of the brand and what it represents, why did you decide to use your name?
Yeah, so I did deliberate for a while. I almost spent tens of thousands on going to an agency that I didn't have, but I did look into it to get a rebranding. And in the end, I came back to Wolf's Kitchen. For me, the products are about feisty flavour. It's about being a flavour hunter, and just sort of felt that the Wolf was really sort of appropriate. It's fun. For me, you know, it felt like there's an element of fun with it as well. It's kind of, and it's powerful, it's strong. And for me, Asian flavors are big, bold, they're feisty, they're fiery, and it's kind of colorful. And you know, for me, the Wolf really sort of fit that.
Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you, Dominique. Fabian, take us back.
Yeah. So I suppose probably a bit before I started, before this, and actually did, was part of the Virgin StartUp community back in 2015, I think. I had a business called, well, I had a business called Claw, which was a restaurant and catering business. And
so that was sustainable seafood, crab.
Yeah, sustainable seafood. Casual. We were trying to do casual, sustainable seafood. So we had a restaurant in Soho, and catered all around the country. And so, yeah, I think with Virgin, we won the Virgin Foodpreneur Award, I think it was called. So I suppose the reason I'm bringing that up is that when I had the restaurant, that was just back in 2018, and the whole zero alcohol spirits market kind of started in 2015, 2016 with Seedlip. And when I had the restaurant, we had customers ask for low alcohol options, and I tried a lot of the zeros. And for me, as in on a completely personal note, I found it didn't really give me the flavor and experience that I was like really looking for when I wanted to reduce my alcohol intake. And at the same time, I felt they weren't very versatile. So fundamentally, they couldn't be mixed with other stronger alcoholic counterparts. So that's kind of was already sort of in the back of my mind. And when I left Claw, I was ruminating, like thinking of what to do next. And I remember just, it sounds odd, but I was like questioning to myself, why in spirits compared to say beer or even wine to an extent, why is it always like all or nothing? You literally can't pick and choose at what speed you want to go at. And I just found it really bizarre that spirits had just stayed the same this whole time, and it's so binary. And anyway, the more research I did, and then obviously bringing up the past of when I had the restaurant, made me start to really question of why couldn't a spirit be a lower percentage if we made it exactly in the same way and method and production method of the spirit that it is, and it's just a low ABV, then it should, you know, for example, a gin. Apparently, you can't call it a gin if it's below 37.5%. However, I just thought these are rules that have been put in place sort of 100 years ago. And if it's made in the exact same way, but it's just low in alcohol, then who really is to say that it's not a gin? Anyway, so then that's how I started thinking about it, and I called a good friend of mine who I always used to bounce ideas off. So my co-founder called Rowan, and his history is in branding and packaging design. And he worked agency side and worked with a lot of the big drinks brands, so AB InBev, Diageo, etc. And I remember saying to him, I've got this idea. I really, you know, think there needs to be something in the middle, something to offer customers the choice of when they still want the flavor, they still want a bit of the buzz, but not always all that alcohol and all that punch. And I said, you know, I think it should be, you know, quarter the alcohol, quarter the calories, etc. And then he just said, I think we should call it Quarter. And then that was like so the fastest naming decision we've ever made, which was pretty handy. And that was it. And then we just got started, started working on the brand, and then raised money for our first production run. And that was sort of, we launched end of last year, so September, October, D2C. And then as of sort of January, February, started speaking to the on-trade. Once COVID had kind of settled, decided to start speaking to bars, restaurants. Sorry, that's what on-trade means, just for listeners who don't know. So it's been an exciting journey, and quite, as I have to admit, even though I had all that experience of working and having ran my own startup before, and this is quite different. So definitely still learning.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Fabian. It seems to me there were two risks not too long ago that you were had to take to give this a go. One is, could you make the stuff a quality quarter-proof gin? And secondly, what was there an audience for this? Because we know the zero alcohol or very low alcohol community has been growing in the drink space, which has been really exciting to see. But this is a different proposition, and you have to educate. And so how did you figure out like how to manage those risks, or you just like, I've got a gut instinct and I think we can do it, let's give it a go?
So I think answering those questions, we kind of tackled them both simultaneously. So we initially ran a big questionnaire for 500 people, friends, family, friends of friends, friends of friends, big tangents, just to really, and we made sure they're all different age groups, etc. And essentially asking them how they drink, just to really understand like why people drink, what drives them to have a drink, and also would they be interested if they could enjoy the same drink but without the consequences, I suppose, and without as much of the effect. And luckily, obviously, we wouldn't have started Quarter otherwise, but luckily most of it, the majority came back saying yes. Fundamentally, most people drink for two reasons: to relax, to unwind, to take the edge off, or to be more social, social lubricant, which is what I suppose alcohol fundamentally is. And then we started looking at a lot of data. And what's really interesting is, so even though the zero space is growing, and as I mentioned, spirits-wise, it only really kicked off in 2015, 2016. But it's over 80% of people who drink zero alcohol still consume regular alcohol. And so what we thought was really interesting about that is it fundamentally shows that people aren't trying to abstain. All they're trying to do is to moderate and to, I suppose, to control the amount of alcohol they drink. So so we just thought there was definitely a market for it. We'd seen it working in the beer industry. So Small Beer, which is another brand I should have mentioned earlier, I absolutely love, and was one of my main inspirations for Quarter. Yeah, I absolutely love it. So for those who are listening who don't know, their beers are essentially sort of table beers, which is a historic style of beer, which is anything from say 1 to 2.5%, 3%. And I absolutely love them. That's kind of where the idea of one of the inspirations of Quarter. And Beavertown and various other breweries have now started to release, or in the last couple of years, started to release lower ABV beers. Anyway, so that's answering that part of the question, but then trying to create this liquid. So we always had the ambition to create several spirits, but we wanted to start with gin because everybody loves gin. Gin is still one of the largest after vodka, but vodka's primarily just mixed. Gin is still one of the largest spirits in the UK, and we knew at a low ABV you could still impart a lot of flavor. And we went through various distilleries, various distillers, and eventually found an absolutely incredible guy who's now part of our business, a guy called Anthony, and he is amazing. Worked at Diageo for years, fully understands how a whole range of spirits, how to make a whole range of spirits, and he fundamentally said, yes, we can definitely do this, and we can make a gin which is 12%, and it's exactly the same, still blended, distilled and blended like a gin, but it'll be blended at 12% as opposed to 40, 50, whatever ABV you want. And so then, and we went through about 70, 80 liquids, and finally
hang on, 70 to 80 you went through. Why, by going through, what do you mean?
So just we kept testing different flavors, testing different ABVs. We didn't say we want to make a 12% gin. We said we want to make, although our brand, obviously, as I said, wanted to be called Porter, we also didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves and say it has to be, roughly 10%. We just said, let's just make the best quality gin that provides flavor, experience, but also fundamentally functionality. And so we went up to 20, we went down to 5. And what we realized is that around 12 for us was the perfect combination of imparting that flavor. Still, when you're having it in a gin and tonic or whether you're having it in a Negroni, you're still getting that delicious experience that you want. But then also the functionality. So, a quarter, by very nature of the name, 4 quarter tonics is equals 1 gin tonic. So you can still have a couple and still crack on with work or even drive. Not that I'm promoting driving, but if that,
you can have one or two, which you couldn't otherwise. That's fascinating, Fabian. On the product development, I want to come back to Dominique and Andy. Has it been similar, Dominique, for you in terms of going through, like, how many different experiments have you done to get your sources right?
I mean, mine was a lot simpler in many ways. I had, I knew my auntie had she'd given me a rough recipe, but not the whole one, because she never really weighed things out. So
she trademarked that.
Yeah, she'd gone to Thailand anyway, I think, by this point. So I was sort of doing it from memory. It took me, a couple of months at home of doing it. And it was relatively a much more straightforward process because it's me testing it, going, right, I need 0.5 gram more salt or something. And I knew the flavors I wanted. Sauces are something I can make. Do you know what I mean? Yes. I did actually think, when I was pregnant, I actually came across Credino, and this is a few years ago, and I thought, alcohol free. And I actually did start exploring it, but I had no experience of the industry, and I had no idea how you would even go about it. So I didn't get onto that one. Sauces for me was something I could do easily. And same with my newest jars of paste. It's like literally I'll just be in my kitchen, recipe testing. It's what I do. And it's actually, for me, a straightforward process. It's not technical.
Yeah, it makes sense. Andy, product development, what's it look like at Black Milk?
It's the specials board, basically. We've had core flavors that have been there for 8 years, like Oreo, Bistro. Hazelnut cream came in about a year later. And then one of the more recent ones, pistachio. So we look at what we love, what the wider market loves, what people ask us for. So we get DMs, we get customers asking for stuff that's not on the menu. So we really do keep note of that. When we decided to do pistachio, we literally looked at a map. Where do pistachios come from? We found a really nice farm next to Mount Etna in Sicily and Italy. So we went there. Then we go straight to the source now. We figure out what the key ingredients are. And then we go to where they're farmed. We find out how to do that, get the supply chain right. Obviously, our supply chain's been a bit crazy with everything going on.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question for ingredients, right? Because I remember talking with Pippa Nutt. She was saying, almonds, the almond market is so volatile. We don't have control of it, the pricing and everything. Therefore, we have to have enough of the other product. Even though almond Pippa Nut sells really well, we have to have loads of the other products, which are much more stable in terms of their ingredients. Is that the case for you at all, Andy? Or is it now you've got the source, so you're able to control it?
So we've had to change the recipe of the most recent batch. Basically, the sauce a lot was full of sunflower oil, which comes from Ukraine and Russia. So we've had to cut out sunflower oil. Fertilizer is really hard to get a hold of now. So that everything's gone up like several percent of that. We've seen the droughts in the UK at the moment. So we know dairy's going to go through the roof for our milkshakes and ice cream. So it's just adjusting, having the prices right. Sometimes we'll change the recipe, but the product is the product. And if you start tinkering too much, it starts being something else.
You make that sound. You make that sound, Andy. Like, and I know you're not in the middle of a stressful moment right now, having a lovely chat, but you make that sound not that painful. But I know that is. I mean, it's really tough. So, how do you and your team deal with that huge variability? Because it can change your business very quickly.
I think the last 2 years have taught me about stoicism. I know you said that you do book club, so anything that you can't control, don't get stressed about. Focus on what you can control. make sure you perfect that. The wider macroeconomic situation, I've got no control. None of us do, but we just adjust to it as well as possible. We understand what we can do, what our consumers want. If people are tightening the purse strings, we make sure we're that one destination people go to once a month to enjoy life. So we just need to be the best, and that's all you can be.
So whatever it takes to put joy out on the high street, that's great. And just a general question about challenges. What's been the biggest challenge for each of you so far, Dominique?
Well, obviously at that time, COVID was a big challenge for me, mainly because I had kids at home 24/7. So, you know, that was interesting. And I think being a solopreneur, that I find is a challenge because I don't have anyone to bounce off. And there's only so much I can do on my own. So I have personally reached the point where, you know, even if the program hadn't happened and I didn't have this book, I'd still be at that point where I need to get external people coming in, some external investment, some extra input from someone who is more experienced than I am, you know, because I don't have the answers further down the line. So, and I think that's great. That's when I realised, you know, I think we've all got to realise at that point. So that's a challenge, finding out how I take that next step.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're reaching out to lots of different people at times, which is a great habit. Fabian, I know quarter's just begun, but more broadly in your entrepreneurial journey, what's been the biggest challenge?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say to Dominique quickly, I think it's really commendable when if you're a solo entrepreneur, I did it with Claw, and obviously it is really hard, and I think it's one thing I suppose I changed with quarters, having a co-founder. It's when you're by yourself, it is definitely difficult, and obviously and it's nice to have someone, even if they're not a co-founder, just to have someone you can share the joys and also then the bad times with at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think answering your question, then I think so. I suppose for us, even now, I think we're definitely feeling this sort of more sort of global economic sort of constraints at the moment. So simple things like trying to get glass. So for us, like glass bottles. Even corks have gone up by 100%, which doesn't sound much, but when obviously you're working everything down to the most sort of minutile margins, then you need to ensure that everything keeps to the same margin. So that has been difficult, and unfortunately at our current stage we haven't got those economies of scale where we can buy sort of 100,000 bottles or what have you. But I suppose that's probably been our biggest thing that's changed, and biggest challenge. But I suppose our biggest challenge at the moment, also on a side note, is as I mentioned earlier, we are developing other spirits, and that's also going to present another challenge of just trying to figure out whether we can develop lower percentage darker spirits or what have you.
Okay, so you're going to go beyond gin, look at rum and whiskey and.
Yeah, definitely. That was all always our ambition from the beginning. We're not 100% sure what those spirits will be just yet. We're sort of tinkering around with Anthony, with a whole range of different spirits to see what sticks and see what we think works perfectly before we release them.
I recommend for those that want to geek out on spirits, obviously apart from following and joining in with the quarter journey, is on the Virgin StartUp podcast. We had a chat with Ben Branson, the founder of Seedlip, last year, and he's the original geek on this, right? I mean, he went out and did 2 years of research on all the different flavors and floral scents and everything that goes into making spirits, and pioneered obviously this amazing industry.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, check that out. On the bigger, we just mentioned that there, Fabian, like the bigger picture, and Andy's got his stoicism, so he can just let it all go. But how are we recession proofing these brilliant brands that you've all created? Because you've got through the pandemic, or you've launched during it. What's coming, we know, is going to be really tough. So when you look at inflation results like we're seeing today in the UK, 10% plus, how do you make a plan, and can you make a plan to say this is how we're going to get through this as a small brand? Dominique, how are you are a PR marketing machine, right? And you've done so well in such a short space of time. But how do you plan to keep selling this product or scaling it over the coming year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's a great question, and I am winging it to be fair. And yeah, I mean, I think part of it is as I grow, I'm hoping that I will be able to achieve scale in the next year. I've got some exciting things on the horizon, hopefully, which is going to help reduce my prices and bring it a little bit more sort of mass market, if you like. So that will definitely help. Mine is an expensive product. It's a £5 sauce, and that isn't going to be for everyone in the first place. And potentially there's whether that consumer can potentially they will still be able to pay £5. I don't know, and it's a good point. And I think we just have to take it as it comes and look at where we can make savings. And I think from what I'm doing, it is scale. I'm definitely nowhere near 100,000 on a run. And you need a lot to actually start making those savings, So I think we're just going to have to keep our ears to the ground and just see what happens. And I'll try and get people on board who can advise me. I mean, that's, as again, what I said, I don't have those skills at the moment. So I need to speak to people and get advice and mentoring from people who do. And so I've got a few people lined up for that. So
that's great to hear. In terms of, we all know this, is that bringing on, making customers loyal and fans, which you all have of your product brand, is the best way to build them, especially direct to consumer. So have you been able to measure, like Dominique, with like repeat custom and like, do you really know who your customer is now?
I'm getting there, and certainly I've been in this transition phase, and in a way it's sort of bad timing, but these things happen. But I am switching manufacturers so that I can go to the co-op, and as a result I've been out of stock of product, and that has been really frustrating because at the same time I've been on TV and I've had a book out. So actually I have not made the most of that. I could have capitalized upon it a lot more, but that is just a timing thing, and I'm not beating myself up about it. I definitely could have capitalized upon that. And I have had so many emails from people saying, where is this product? And I'm like, it's going to be here soon, but I am literally just in this in-between phase while I'm phasing one out and getting another on board. So these things happen. So and I'm definitely one of my products is a really great product that's been selling so well on Amazon, and I've lost that I have lost that traction, but as I say, I'm learning from that process, and I know that I'll get it back once it's there. I think it is just about building it and keeping going. And again, I will be capturing more of that data, and I do have a newsletter list. I mean, people are signing up to it all the time, and so we are capturing. Isn't
it mad? I mean, you're creating a great brand and product, but it's also slightly mad, isn't it, that people sign up, I'll be on a newsletter for a cool sauce business. It's like, what?
I know, exactly.
A hot sauce business, I should say.
And there's definitely more that can be done. So
but it's great. This is what brand building is all about. It's like, well, I want to hear what Dominique's up to and the creations. Really briefly, Dominique, you must share your TV story for those that were in a dark hole when it happened.
Yeah, so if you didn't see it, Jamie Oliver had a show out earlier this year called the Great Cookbook Challenge. So it's a cookery program. But the prize, you actually had a prize, which was a cookbook deal with Penguin Michael Joseph, which are his publishers. And for somehow I won it. I've got no idea how. And so I won that, and I got a cookery book deal. And that book was out 2 months ago, and is a #1 Sunday Times bestseller. So I'm very excited about that. And has been, bestseller on Amazon since it was out. So it's done really, amazingly well, which nice. I can't believe it, to be honest. So yeah.
Well,
so
I've been doing made it happen. Tell us briefly about what was the thing that you learned from that journey, the TV journey, and all the razzmatazz around it.
I learned. I did learn a lot about being very focused. I did have to cut out alcohol for about 4 months actually, because I was given a very steep deadline of about 6 weeks to write a book. 85 recipes or something. So that was intense. And again, this is my tunnel vision focus. It's like, I knew this had to be done, and I just literally dropped everything else, and I did have to not look at the Wolf's Kitchen for a little bit, because this is my opportunity. It's a massive opportunity, and I wanted to take it by the horns. So, and also actually what it did make me realize is how much I love that recipe creation process, which is at the heart of the Wolf's Kitchen, and it actually all ties in really well. And it's all about a solution. I'd thought this before, and it all came together. It's like the Wolf's Kitchen products offer people a solution who love Asian flavors, but maybe they don't have time to make that sauce. And they can add it, they can pimp up their everyday avocado on toast for something delicious, or you can use one of my simple recipes. So it provides a solution, and all of it fits in with that kind of solution. So it kind of, maybe the pieces of the jigsaw sort of started to fit about what Dominique's Kitchen and the Wolf's Kitchen could be as a sort of unit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And you got offered a book deal from Jamie Oliver or Penguin, so that it's hard to say no to that. And you've got 80 new recipes for the future to turn into products or inspired products. So there's good work all around. Now, before we start to wrap up, I wanted to talk about the bigger picture here of sustainability and climate. Like we all these crises are happening around our world, and food and drink is at the heart of the problem, as we know. Not our startups, but big food and drink and agriculture and so industrial agriculture and so on. How do you, in your everyday work, do your best to make sure that you're not contributing to a negative social or environmental problem in the world that's already existing? Andy, how do you do it at Black Milk?
So we've done it from day one. We've always focused on a premium product, which is glass over plastic anyway. So we've done it consciously and unconsciously at the same time. We've avoided plastic at all costs. I literally walk in a cafe now and look, what's plastic, what can I get rid of? Everything going out the door is plastic free. It's all cardboard, glass, recyclable, reusable, more importantly. So going out of the building, everything's now great. Coming into the building, so I'm looking at, like, we go through thousands of tubs of ice cream a year. So that's all plastic. So now I'm speaking to suppliers about how we can move to stainless steel with that. So like I mentioned with stoicism, I can control what I can control, my little corner of my house where I live, and then where my business, where we run something, I can make sure that's as good as possible, and then try and pass that on to our consumers. And it's just encouraging reuse. Obviously, we don't want reduce, because we still want to sell stuff. So reduce, reuse, so we can encourage our guests to reuse what they have, and then recycle what they don't want to reuse.
And when there's a cost challenge in there, so it's more expensive to switch to the glass or the stainless steel, how do you balance that out? Do you try and do it in you phase it in, or is it a red line? You just go, we've got to switch.
No, I charge more. And I want to charge even more. So we're looking at getting artists to design our glasses, so we can charge an extra £5 for our glass. So if it's a premium product, shout and scream about it, be proud of it, say it's glass, it's recyclable, it's reusable. When we're in Selfridges, we looked at all these amazing perfume bottles that probably cost more than the liquid inside of them for the manufacturers. So we want something that you don't want to throw away. We want a glass that you want to keep on your shelf with your pens in it, or something like that, keep your flowers in it. So we want something that lasts, and it's the marketing. I know Richard Branson talks about Virgin Atlantic. People are stealing his little salt shakers, so we've not copied that, but we're aware of those mementos of a brand being around your house is so important.
And if you turn them upside down, it says, "Thank you for taking this from Virgin Atlantic." That's great to hear. And what about the products themselves? So dairy, as we know, is a big. There's a lot of questions on the dairy industry, and you're selling a lot of ice cream. So how are you figuring that out?
I think we'd have to go vegan. Well, I'm not saying we will, but we can go vegan if we had to. We want the choice. We're not vegan focused. We have vegan options available. Some people are dairy free. People want vegan. People just don't want dairy, and we have that option available. So if we had to, we can pivot away from milk. But for me, milk tastes amazing. Butter tastes amazing in cake. I don't like cake without butter. It is what it is. Whipped cream's amazing. So wherever possible, we'll just keep dairy in it, and we'll keep on buying dairy at whatever price. Unfortunately, we might have to pass that on, but to lose farmers, for them to lose their livelihood, we try and buy local from local farms in Lancashire and Cheshire. So we want them to survive through the next year and through global warming itself.
Yeah,
it's all possible.
So many different questions. The headline for me is that whipped cream is great. I think that's what should be on the front of the podcast tonight, that we get cut up. Fabian, in your business, how do you factor in all these big questions of sustainability?
Yeah, I suppose we're still fairly sort of still at the beginning, I suppose, of our journey, but still from the outset, we ensured that all our packaging was completely recyclable and sustainable. So glass is made from mostly recycled glass, and the whole packaging, everything is recyclable. There's no plastic in any of our packaging, apart from a tamper seal, which unfortunately, for legal reasons in retail, you have to have, which is also recyclable, which is good. I suppose it's one of those things that we try to look at how else we can do good and do better. And so as our brand name is Quarter, we like to play on that. So we donate a quarter of profits each quarter of the year to a different quarter of the world. So although that's not necessarily targeted at sustainability, we like to ask our consumers where they believe those profits should go to. And so that's quite a nice, fun thing to involve our customers and our customer base to decide sort of where their money goes to, really. And we're part of 1% of the Planet, and we are signing up for B Corp. But yeah, I think direct sustainability is one of those things that once we have more personnel and once we have an office and the company gets bigger, it's one of those things that we're keen to ensure that we do everything we can to ensure our business is fully sustainable. And I think if you start, like Andy mentioned, if you start like that from the outset, it's far easier than trying to rectify it years down the line.
And final question, Fabian, I appreciate it's a big one. I'm only going to give you a minute, which is a challenge. But why do you think this trend around, in terms of mental health and cultural shift between generations towards quality, lower alcohol drinks in this country, which has been obsessed with alcohol for centuries, why is that happening now?
Well, that's a tough question because I think it depends who you ask. But I mean, obviously, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware, it's definitely pulling, and all the data that shows it's the younger generations, the Gen Zs, who are driving a lot of this behavior. But however, I mean, so I'm 33, and even just looking at peers, you definitely see this shift of people who've liked alcohol all their life and probably used to get pissed 5 times a week or whatever, but they're now waking up and realizing that it's not all about that, and they want that balance. And I think it fundamentally just comes down to balance, and people want more from life. I think we live in a generation or in a time where there's so many experiences, there's so much to be had from life and the world, and so I think if you spend your life hungover, you won't be able to enjoy them. So I don't know if that's probably, if that answers the question, but that's kind of my view on it.
It's your answer. It's a great one. Thanks, Fabian. And Dominique, for your business, what are the considerations around sustainability?
I mean, obviously the packaging. So, you know, my sauces are in glass. The nuts are actually recyclable film. So, and I have looked into really properly sort of compostable packaging for the nuts, and that's very, very expensive, really cost prohibitive for the size of company that I am. So on the radar, it's not something that's able to do at the moment, because it would add, it would add a lot on the price. As Fabian said, it's just me and the company, so I don't have to commute anywhere. There isn't really, I'm doing minimal sort of activity in some ways, but as soon as I start getting more people on board, then yes, we can really start implementing some strategies from the beginning, as Andy said. But as my product ranges, I've got lots of ideas for sort of other product ranges, and sustainability will be at the heart of those, whether it's refill and reusable packaging and that kind of stuff. So there's definitely going to be, that is going to be at the forefront of some of the stuff we'd be doing.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. So final quick round. We've got a brilliant audience here and community of talented, well-connected, passionate food and drink business lovers. So what do you want to ask from them? What's one thing that they could, other than being a customer and shouting about it and follow you all on socials and so on, what's one thing that you're sort of looking for help for that maybe this community could help with? Dominique?
Looking for help from... sorry, can you rephrase it? How do you mean?
What does Woolf's Kitchen need help with that this community could try and support you on?
I think it's that sort of regular understanding the social media side, I guess. Obviously I do that already, but for me, my sort of weakest link, if you like, is the D2C side. That is a side that I've played with, but I'm not an expert in. And so that is something that I need. And, the social media comes hand in hand with that in terms of how we get that engagement and people to really build that community, actually. Because I think we've sort of talked about that community. And I think Andy has that with his cafe, perhaps. And it's like, how do you build a real food community? Because I think with a brand, often people go to the Instagram site and they don't engage with it in the same way they would do someone. So how do you create that real sort of engaged community of a tribe that want to be, part of that story and journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the thing that I've seen over the years is through things like this. Obviously, it's better in person with food and drink, especially. But the festival circuit in the UK is incredible for this sort of stuff, where you're seeing all these great food and drink brands come together. And obviously, I would definitely recommend having a chat with this young man, Andy Young, about D2C and Instagram building, because whoever he's hired to do it is really good. He's cheap. It's cheap, really cheap labor. The social media manager. It's very, very impressive. So yeah, definitely for everyone watching, check out look at Black Milk's work on that. Fabian, what do you need help with at Quarter?
I think we are always striving to be better, and we're always really keen to get. As I've said several times, we're still in the early stages and nascent stages of our business, and always keen to get as many people's opinions as possible. And we've really got a new drive now to get as much liquid on lips, as I would like to say. So I think really is if anyone from this community wants to be a recipe tester and wants to try our gin as it is and see if it needs improvement, or try our new liquids, we're always really, really keen to get people's opinions and help craft what we can continue to create.
That is the best challenge I've ever heard. What is your business here? People would like to sample our delicious product. Well, I'm putting my hands up for Rebel Book Club, because we have events every month with a great crowd who are your target audience. All food.
Oh, great! Well, if people send, whoever's listening to this, and including you, Ben, and Dominique and Andy, if you send us your addresses, we'll happily send some.
Whoa! Careful what you.
Yeah.
Careful what you
Rowan's probably texting me now saying, "Don't do that."
Yeah, but there's 200 people messaging you right now saying, "Yes, we'll have a 6-pack of your."
Keen to get people's thoughts.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Fabian. Andy, what about Black Milk? You're doing great things. How can we help you accelerate faster?
For me, it's about collaborations. I love working with other people. If it's for a day, if it's for life, we can learn so much from each other. So in the social media sphere, just doing collaborations is great. But behind the scenes, like say we're talking to a sauce brand like Wolf's Kitchen, we can learn about how they get their product from A to B without smashing. There's little details like that are so important.
Always the challenge.
Why they buy glass,
unbreakable deliveries.
So yeah, that's where it's nightmare to ship, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's just collaborations, and we're very open. You talk about open source software. We're not trade secrets. We're just very open with what we do. We try and perfect it, and we try and bounce off other people to be as good as possible. So we're very open. I think that's important in business nowadays.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a nice theme from our conversation tonight is, is bringing joy to people. There's a lot of challenges out there, but you're all doing it. Andy, very clearly with Black Milk in terms of your mission and brand on the high street. Tough times, people need that. Dominique, you breathed so much joy with your story, your TV stardom. Jamie obviously spotted your talent, and now everyone else is enjoying it as well as the sources. And Fabian, like bringing joy through drink that doesn't, cause a lot of damage. I think that word that you used earlier, the consequences of alcohol have done so much damage. The stimulation of alcohol is wonderful, isn't it? Like many things, a little stimulation creates magic, but too much can be destructive. And you're building a product that is in the sweet spot. So I'm excited to try it. But thank you all three of you for being here tonight and for your work. Can't wait to share it with everyone else, and have a good evening.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dominique. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Fabian.